Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Plus One interview. And today we have a very special guest. Not only is he a professor, a musician, author, he's also my big brother. So we got
Yes,
we
sir.
got we got Dr. Omekongo Dibinga here with us today. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great, bro. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm great. I'm great. I'm great. It's great that we finally got you here. We finally
I know.
finally got you on. So there's a lot to talk about going on in the sports world. I mean, especially particularly the NFL. I mean,
hmm
first when you heard about everything, when you first heard about the emails, the first set of emails that came out last
Yeah.
Friday about John Gruden, what was your initial reaction to that?
So my initial thought was, you know what? This is gonna blow over because they only got this email from 2011, and we're 10 years later, and people are just gonna say we all make mistakes a long time ago. It's about who you are now, and so on and so forth. But that was a quick initial thought. Then, when I started, I diverted back to the work I do, talking about the importance of being an upstander and not a bystander, right? And then I said, wait a minute. Those emails had to be sent to somebody, and I haven't heard anything yet about how that person responded. And so then I started to quickly realize that this man's behavior was enabled.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's when I said to myself, knowing that the NFL is a racist organization as it is, this has to be just the beginning. And then within 48 hours or so,
Yeah.
or less, it turned out that Gruden had emails going all the way up to 2019 relating to Kaepernick, relating to the Nassib, who is the gay player in the NFL now, and Michael Sam back in the day, and all of that. And that's when I was just like, it's the floodgates. It's not just him. There's going to be a lot more. And though his story may be over with the NFL for now, because it's an old boys network and we never know, it's just the beginning of what else is in these emails. And so that's how I saw it.
Yeah, and you know what is also interesting? Not the racist stuff that he said, the misogynist, the homophobic stuff. That was you hear about that, but then there's another bigger issue where they're sending topless photos of cheerleaders to each other.
I did not know that.
In these emails, though, this was
Wow.
also revealed in that. And the big thing is John Gruden. I've said this before. He's the small fry in all of this because
That's right.
the whole lead up to this was an investigation into the Washington football team and workplace
hmm
misconduct and that. So 650,000 emails. Who else? What else are in those emails? That's the other question.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate what Jamel Hill said the other day when she said, the NFL sees black people as laborers and not leaders. Like we're good for the halftime shows, we're good to play on the field, but it's an old boys network. You can't just, like other leagues, unlike other leagues, you can't just come into the NFL and put up the money and get a team. You got to be approved. All of the owners except for one, the Panthers owner are white. And, they didn't even let Trump in. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's how tight their network is. And so when you have a network like that, the fact that these guys chose to write all of these things on their company emails, no one's going to their Gmail, Yahoo accounts or whatever. No one's going on their social media. They're going to the emails they felt comfortable writing. We've all had jobs. There are emails that I have written where I might be upset about something, or someone that I would never write from my job email. But if they felt comfortable doing that, that means there's levels of enabling from the top down. You're sending topless photos. I mean, look, I hope that none of these cheerleaders, first of all, it's pornography and all of that. But what if some of these cheerleaders, some of these photos they sent, they were under 8? What if there was like a 17-year-old cheerleader? I don't know the policy for how young you got to be a cheerleader. Then you're engaging in child pornography. So it's just like, I'm very interested to see where that's going to go because you just hit me to that information.
Yeah, because there was also that investigation in the Washington football team and the misconduct of the cheerleaders. I think some of the cheerleaders sued them. This was some years. This wasn't not too long ago. Actually, it might have been like 3 or 4 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So this, yeah,
I stopped, a lot of people are saying online, like, I stopped watching the NFL after what they did to Kaepernick and stuff. And I'm like, I stopped watching the NFL after Ray Rice. Because, Boston, Patriots fan all day. When we won the championships, I was out in the streets, Fenway Park, living it. I was running that all with it. But it's like when Ray Rice happened and he, beat his, was caught knocking out his fiance, and they asked Tom Brady what his thoughts are about this. And I believe at this time, Tom Brady was the highest paid player. He said, it's above my pay grade to speak about that. And then I was like, man, I'm sitting here watching a league that will penalize players more for abusing drugs than abusing their spouses. Mm-hmm. And I'm sitting here with a wife and 2 daughters and a son I'm raising. That's when I stopped messing with the NFL. And then all of the racist stuff happened with Kaepernick. And I'm like, I can't mess with y'all. And this is just another example.
Yeah. And you touched on it earlier. You talked about the enabling with John Gruden's email. If you looked at some of the responses afterwards, during the Sunday telecast of pregame shows and I believe like Monday telecast, there were many people that were continued the enabling of him. They didn't condemn his behavior. Probably, I think 1 or 2. I know Randy Moss had some strong statements about that and what the league should do. But in other networks, you saw guys just kind of just brushed it aside, saying they're just try to say that this is not how they know John Gruden. He's not like that. It was kind of like, okay, once again, this is the enabling behavior because your response lets him know that he could do this because you're not condemning the behavior that he showed in those emails.
Well, I think people are enabling for 2 reasons. Number one, they don't know, they're afraid about some of their emails coming out. Right, some of the things that they put out there, especially if these guys are like, some of the coaches who were out there. I mean, Tony Dungy got into some hot water a couple of years ago for, people feeling that he was homophobic. And so were there some emails that he might have sent out? And I didn't see his comments with Tirico over the weekend, but people were saying he was kind of accepting it and the like. So I think some of these people are afraid of their own skeletons. But then at the other time, you got a lot of these guys, a lot of these athletes who are just, if they're former athletes and the like, you do got the Keyshawn Johnsons of the world who are saying, I've always known this. I always felt he was a used car salesman and, all of this. And I felt like he was a front. But some of these other guys have never been activist minded anyway. They've never been about, rocking the boat. Look what happened with all of the knee protests. I mean, these guys weren't out there with Kaepernick and Reed and a couple of other ones doing it. I mean, they started to do it a little bit last year once the NFL embraced the term Black Lives Matter, and Jerry Jones did it with his team before the national anthem was sung, just to be clear. And they started doing it a little bit kind of like that for show, but they're never really about this life. They've always tried to play the middle. And so I expect nothing less from them, which is problematic. But for the ones of us who are out here doing this work, who care about this life and ending racism, it's got to be called out.
Yeah, and you touch on that. You also look at the Kaepernick, that whole situation. There were comments in there about the guys that were kneeling about Eric Reed, he should be fired, or calling certain guys names because of these protests. And they try to show face and try to show that they stand up for their players against racial discrimination and all that, but the email says otherwise.
That's right.
And so it's like all these protests, the organizations talk about standing behind their players, but then these emails show that you only did that just to save face.
It was convenient, and they knew that it was going to blow over. This is how we are in America. I mean, many of us, we're so caught up in what's going on right in front of us that we don't got time to get out there and really protest on a regular basis, really fight for change. And, people talked about last year being a summer of, racial reckoning. I never believed that. Corporations promised like $50 billion to help with these efforts. And I think like maybe 2 million has gone out or something to that effect. People talk about this stuff quickly and they know, just like with protests over unarmed police shootings. When was the last time you heard Breonna Taylor's name in the news? It's still a great day to arrest the officers that killed her. It's still a great day to make sure that they never have a job again. But, they're still out there doing their thing. And so they know that we get comfortable and we lose patience and we just go on to the next thing. And they believe that they can wait that out. And we got to do better. And for all of y'all out there who watch the league and stuff, I'm like, yeah, if you're going to watch it, admit that you're watching a racist, sexist, homophobic organization. And at least if you're going to continue to support it, actively fight to make it better. Like your favorite team, write the owners, write the players, Call them out on social media. Let people know, I love this league. I want you to be better. Please do those things. When I see so many women, I think the majority of fans are women, and I see all these domestic violence things going on. Like, we gotta stand up more. And if we do that, the product in terms of what they're producing at these corporate levels will change. But they won't even let us in as ownership. And what are there, like 3 black coaches now or something like that? It's ridiculous, or less. But they've shown who they are. Yeah. And these emails are just going to reinforce that. Yeah. And the question becomes, we knew it, but we didn't really care that much. But now it's out there. What are we going to do about it now?
Yeah. And then when we find out what more is to come from this, what else was being said? Because, 650,000 emails. So you could only imagine what else was said with that. And this also shows why the league, I know someone said it on Twitter, I think it was Mike Freeman, why the league kind of paid Colin Kaepernick off. So because of everything that went on with that. Oh yes.
Kaepernick, I feel like he should have definitely, I feel like, he should have, maybe the agreements he signed, he couldn't disclose how much he got or whatever, but he knew, the dude is so smart. He knew that there had to be a whole treasure trove of information, because there's no reason why a man of his talent, even if you thought he was a second string quarterback in the last 5 years or whatever, the NFL needed that because some of these quarterbacks sucked or got injured, so he knew that it was all about the racism, and now he's about to be vindicated again, and I'm happy to see that, because he deserves that.
Mm-hmm. And another thing with the Washington football team, because this whole thing just comes back to the Washington football team. This whole thing started with an investigation because I believe one of their trainers was doing some stuff he wasn't supposed to be doing, so they had to come into that. And then yesterday they announced, with all this drama happening, they announced that they're going to retire Sean Taylor's jersey this Saturday in such a short notice. Usually when you're going to retire a player's jersey, you have a good amount of time to do that, to let people know. They make this announcement. Then there's former players who were just like, who got the notice last minute and stuff. So the Washington football team, they're just fumbling everything.
But this is the fault of the fans, man, because they know, they operate a lot. The NFL operates a lot like Trump does. Like, Trump is the master marketer, the master salesman, the master of the photo op. Like, remember when he had all of those presidents of HBCUs come to the White House and for that photo op and promised them all of this money they never got? And to this day, those HBCU presidents are mad because they felt like they were used. Because when people see that picture that can be recirculated over and over again, they're like, see, Trump's about this. He's done more for HBCUs. And they stop there. They don't do the research. People are going to see Deshaun's number retired and going to be like, oh, they're doing right now. They're doing okay. It's good. Let's celebrate that. And then they're going to forget. People got short memories. Mm-hmm. And these league owners, they know that. They know that, and they take advantage of that every single day, because as long as people can get out there and their team's winning, all of this other stuff can go away real quick. And we got to do better.
Yeah. What do you think will be happening next as more information comes out with this investigation?
Yep. I think that there's going to be more emails and stuff that are going to come out. I think that there's going to be more apologies coming from these coaches. I think depending on some of the things that are said, for example, I feel like coaches that are going to be found to be having shared stuff that's more misogynistic, they're going to get a pass from players because they don't have a problem with that. It doesn't affect them in the locker room. Yeah, they got mothers and sisters and daughters and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily affect them. The NFL is still a misogynistic league. So I think that those guys are going to get a pass. I think that guys who may have said some things relating to people who are gay, maybe a few years ago, maybe not about Car on the Sea, but a few years ago, are also going to get a pass. I feel like the people who said the most racist stuff are probably going to be the ones who might be penalized or reprimanded in some way because the majority black players in the league. But overall, I feel like if the fans and the people and the sponsors, I repeat, the sponsors, if they don't start pulling money, if they don't see real action, and if the fans stop saying that, start saying that we're not going to support this, then we'll see real change. Like at the height of this Kaepernick stuff, like I don't have regular TV at home. We do the Netflix and all that type of stuff. So I don't have regular television. So, and I don't have like ESPN or whatever. So I don't watch the games. I wouldn't watch anyway, but I wouldn't like see what's happening. But I remember at the height of the Kaepernick stuff, I went to we went bowling, and they got all the games up there. And the majority of the people at the games were black. The majority of the announcers and the people doing the teleprompting and all of that commentating were black. And I'm like, wow, where's the protest? Why aren't these dudes standing with Kaepernick and Reed and all of these other guys? They're just going about their business. And that's when I realized, like, guys like Kaepernick and Reed, they're never going to win. Mm-hmm. If the majority of people who support the league, who are black in particular, don't stand up. Where are the broadcasters who are saying, I'm not going to broadcast today in support of Colin Kaepernick? Or, where are the players who are saying, I'm not going to play today in support of, the players that Gruden disparaged? It's not happening in the league like that en masse. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I think the league overall is going to get over, because I'm not that optimistic in what the fans and these corporations are going to do.
What history has shown us that they always get a pass, and people always just let it go over. Especially, it's we kind of could have seen it too.
We finally got rid of the name of of the Washington team. That was decades in the making. Didn't just start last year, but that was because corporate sponsors finally started getting the message, because the owner said, I'm never going to change it, even if I'm dead. It's not going to happen. We have to keep fighting, never giving up. But do we have that mentality for the rest of the stuff going on? I haven't seen it with the NFL.
Yeah, and also this kind of something that popped up to me. It also shows like the lack of solidarity amongst the players, because back to Kaepernick, there was only few players that actually joined him in kneeling when he initially began that, and when it became a thing. There were a few players that initially just joined him, and there were a few that actually made comments about it or had any real insight or something positive to say about it. A lot of the players were just, that's Kaepernick's decision and what's best for him, and something like that. Mm-hmm. There wasn't no solidarity.
And I find it interesting, because this is something I also find interesting about Kaepernick, is that Kaepernick actually never called for a boycott of the NFL for the stance. And again, not for just what they were doing to him, but just what he saw the NFL doing in general, which he considered to be racist, right? Mm-hmm. And you see him online, you saw him online still cheering on players and supporting them and rooting for them and all of that. So I find that interesting in terms of how far his activism went as it related to the NFL, because like I said, he never called for that boycott, and he was out there still supporting the players, even though they may not have been vocally supporting him. And yes, some of these guys spoke out, and some of these guys give financially and do other things, but en masse, you don't see the level of activism that you see in an organization like the NBA. And so I found that to be very interesting as it relates to Kaepernick in terms of how far he was willing to take it. And I'm not saying he needed to call out players and stuff, but again, I found it interesting that he never called for people to not watch the NFL. Mm-hmm. And that he was still actively out there supporting the players as he was calling out the owners. And I'm not in a place to say that he was wrong for that, but I definitely felt like in the way that it was going, I felt like that was where it was going to go. But the fact that it never got there and we never knew how much he got, it was something that I questioned a lot in terms of that. But in terms of who he is and his activism and what he did, all praise is due to what he did. I mean, he really did what he did and inspired so many people, and all of the kids he inspired and so on and so forth. Definitely. But yeah, I just find it interesting. So, and since he never took it to that level, why would I expect anybody of these players now to be calling for the NFL to be boycotted? I just can't see it.
All right. Lastly, because just got a couple minutes left. Lastly, before we go, you made a little NBA reference. Lastly, this whole Kyrie Irving situation that he created.
Yes.
What do you make of this? Because it's just one guy, but he's causing so much trouble. He's causing so many, I shouldn't say so much trouble, but he's creating so many headlines, and it seems it's all for the wrong reasons.
He's irresponsible. And, they say Kyrie's always been about Kyrie. That Bradley Beal, I don't know if he's gotten vaccinated yet, but, Bradley Beal and the Wizards has had issues with the vaccine. He talked about it once in a press conference, but he's not making any big stinks about it and anything. You know, he's going about what he needs to go about. Now, of course, in D.C., they don't have the same mandates that they do in New York. But Irving's always been about Irving, and he's out there promoting conspiracy theories. He's out there, you know, sharing information that's not factual. I mean, this guy was a flat earther. I mean, he's always been about these different types of theories. And look, at the end of the day, he's not a hero. Kyrie ain't Kaepernick. That's a hashtag I put out. You know, it's not the same deal. You know, Trump and all that, and not Trump, but, you know, Ted Cruz and all of these guys embraces him as some type of moral hero. Look, you can have the freedom to not get vaccinated, but you don't have the license to make other people sick. And, you know, when people like Wiggins, you know, in Golden State talking about, you know, I was forced to do it. You weren't forced to do it. Mm-hmm. They say the difference between a moment and a movement is sacrifice, right? You didn't sacrifice your career. You chose to get the shot. You had a choice. You could have not played, just like Kyrie. So what we need to do in the media is right now, he's not playing with the team. Stop covering Kyrie. Let him do his IG thing. The Nets are moving on. He says he doesn't want his career to end like that, so maybe he'll be back. Let him go. Move on. There's other things to worry about. Focus on the majority of the players who are vaccinated and following the rules in the league and make that the story.
Yeah, all right, definitely. All right, Dr. O, please let them know where they can find you. Plug in your social media.
Oh, most definitely. People can find me online, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, at Omekongo, just my first name, at Omekongo. And of course, they can go to omekongo.com or upstanderinternational.com. And of course, follow me on youtube.com/Omekongo.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that has been our +1 interview with Dr. Omekongo Dibinga. We're glad to have him for this one. Everybody have a great day.
Peace out.
All right.